2010 would be very different for 2009. Even outlook is greater. But the issue is that so many capacity which was idled in the beginning of last year would start up, that it will immediately affect the price of our raw material suppliers. That's why I think what's important to look, and at the same time, LME and pricing, would significantly improve. It will go up. That's why I think what's important is operational margin. For Rusal, equation is very simple. Every $100 increase in LME represents only $35, $36 increase in cost. This means the rest, more than $60, it's our margin. And what Rusal will do this year will demonstrate much more better margin, operational margins than we had last year.
Mr. Deripaska, let me tell you what one investor said to me this morning about Rusal's earnings. He says if you look at the underlying profit, it's really based on the appreciation of Norilsk shares and your stake in the nickel producer. But he says if you look at the underlying profit, it's a company that belongs to the creditors. It's over-leveraged. How do you respond to that criticism?
If you, his example with Norilsk Nickel, if you look at Norilsk, in the end 2009, the value of the stake was slightly above $3 billion. Today, value of the stake $10 billion. We pay for the stake $14 billion, and Norilsk, because we have very significant presence in the board. 1/3 of Norilsk board represented by Rusal nominated director. It means that no major decision, dividends, investment can be done without our consent.
Let me just ask you about the IPO, the Rusal's IPO, and how it was conducted, because it made a lot of headlines here in the city, across the Asia Pac, really, in the business world, because retail investors were not allowed to get in. Only institutional investors were allowed to put money in, and that's because it was deemed unsafe and not clear for retail investors. How did you feel about that process?
We'll try to review with authorities. In time it would be ready.
And during that time as well, your name came up a lot in those reports. And people pointed to the fact that your multi-entry visa to the U.S. was revoked. And people were talking about these stories that you were even attacked in Russia during the aluminum wars with the grenade launcher sorts. How do you feel when you hear these stories about yourself in the media?
I don't care, but it was so long ago.
And what about, Russian corporate titans like yourself, who have done very well in the corporate world, billionaires, made lots of money on the stock market and by doing business. How do you feel about the reputation of Russian billionaires and the underworld and people making links to that initially?
I can comment on the rest of the Russian. I'm working 16 hours a day. I train as a physicist. That's why I understand everything you need to understand from physics of atmosphere, to microelectronics. That's why I try to focus my companies on operation and bring more efficiency. I think it's always an issue of success. If you're successful, there is a lot of people who support you, but there's much more people who are actually jealous of you. It's very often. And for Russia, we ran through very rough times. There was disintegration, during the Soviet Union. Russian budget had a lack of money, and we actually, were challenging, in a lot of different series of issues. Strikes in the 90s, shortage of supply of raw materials, and look at Russia. Russia very different, much more stronger budget, almost double GDP as was predicted for the 10 years when Putin came in power. And I think reputation is a history. And history in the next 10 years it will show what and who was what.